Hello everyone, welcome back to Magic After Midnight. We're going to continue where we left off, and Marcia has just asked Mr. Vampire Dare to cool it, take it easy for a while. And he's said, "Is that really what's bothering you?" She's about to answer. No, it isn't. Marcia wraps her arms around herself, looks at the floor. What's really bothering her is that she's attracted to her boss, who is not just her boss, but out of a league, and wrong for her in so many ways. She's not sure how it happened. Usually with younger men, she finds them cute, but a little, well, young. She likes men with silver in their hair and creases in the foreheads, and laugh lines. Men who have loved and lost and lived, whom she doesn't have to explain things to about grief, children and life, because they already understand. The problem is, Dare understands too, and 2 days ago, it had nearly cost her everything. He'd taken her arm in after lunch, a gesture she's sure he learned during a short visit to New York in the 1800s. She looked up at him at precisely the same moment he'd looked down at her, and she almost melted. Worse, she stood up on her tiptoes, and then she'd almost kissed him, if that truck hadn't honked its horn. Better not to think about it. Because if it is, I think I have a solution to everyone's problems, says Dare. Oh, says Marcia, not knowing where he's going with this, but hoping there will be a way for her to wriggle out of lunch. She sees him wave a hand in the periphery of her vision, and the door slams shut. She gasps and turns her head. Do you use magic to close the door? He puts a hand on the top of her left one. Her arms are crossed, and his hand covers her hand and part of her left arm, and she goes hot all over. Marcia feels her face go completely red. She looks down at his hand on hers, and she doesn't realise that she's blushing like a schoolgirl. I could be a real father figure to them if I become their father. After those words come out of Dare's mouth, it takes what feels like a century for Marcia to put them together. What? She blurts out. She must have misheard, because the words, they don't really make sense. We're perfect together. Dare says, you're diplomatic and you're brave. She blinks at that, and he says, you thought your life was in danger. When I brought back Sydney's silly shoe, but you didn't lose your head. I could see you thinking about where to hide your children, possibly thinking of what sort of kitchen implement you might use as a stake. I was almost expecting you to push me off the balcony. Her lips part and she feels her heart stop. He had picked up on that. Your advice is spot on. Your handling of my royal families, he grimaces, eccentricities, is inspired. Anyone could have told them that, asking about potential blood donors. Virginity status would bring about a political firestorm, Marcia says. But no one did, Dare says. We make a good team. I think that I'm good for your family. And hadn't she just been thinking exactly that? She swallows. It's not a speech a young man would give, not at all. It's something an older man would say, and that is what makes it right and more romantic, rather than less. She hears him gulp. We can't get married on Earth with the current state of inter-hominid marriage laws, but in the Night Elf Kingdom it would be acceptable. It would make a lot of my fellow elves extremely jealous, but I don't care. He squeezed the hand. You don't need to worry about it being a polyamorous situation where I have a vampire wife as well. I've had children already. What? He winces. At one time it was practical. Not just a male vampire and a human woman and vampire woman. It went the other way as well. I've always personally felt with three, you tend to triangulate. He shudders. I have enough of being a diplomatic with my job. I don't need that at home. She stares at him open-mouthed for far too long. I look like your mother, she stammers at last. His lips purse, and he pulls her hand to his stomach. He looks to the side and then back at her. No. She has pointed ears and fangs and is blonde, his voice says. I know this is a trick question. I just don't know what. He smiles sunnily. She'll adore you. Sometimes he seems old and immensely wise. Sometimes he seems just clueless. When we go out to eat, Marcia says in a slow, careful voice, at least 3 times people have been mistaken, and it's me for your mother. And you just laugh, because it's funny, he says, in the same voice. He smiles again, and this time it is wicked. I don't think of you as my mother at all. His voice is just as wicked as his smile. A mouth that just drank pig's blood shouldn't look as sexy as it does. Marcia still stands, frozen. I'm going to get very old, very quickly, in the grand scheme of things. Don't kiss him, she tells herself. Think of the pig's blood. Think of the pig's blood. Dare stands up. He's very close, too close. He clutches her hand to his chest. First off, just as vampires look, I am told. Too beautiful to human eyes, humans look the same to us. But moreover, if you are my wife, my host, you won't grow old. You might even look younger. She looks up and finds him gazing down at her hand. That's a symbiotic benefit we're not supposed to talk about. Not looking up, he adds, and you won't get cancer again. She can see where they might want to keep that quiet. Vampires could wind up hunted to extinction or something. But Marcia takes a sharp breath. I never told you I had cancer. No, he says, but I guessed when I realised you could see our fangs. He shrugs, eyes still downcast. We have an innate glamour that hides them. Humans who are very close to death, they can see them. And humans in other emotional, non-death situations, you healed me. His eyes met hers, and he looks very old again. No, I will never say that I did. Please, don't think of it. There is no compulsion to take up my offer, Marcia. Marcia looks down at her hand and laughs softly. Usually on Earth, an offering comes from my boss would be considered compulsion. She feels his hand loosen, looks up, and sees a pained expression on his face, as though she struck him. That was the most undiplomatic observation of all time, she says, pulling her hand to her lips and closing her eyes. To kiss it. A coil of hair has fallen in front of her eyes, and he brushes it back. Does this mean you'll? I'm saying I'll consider it, she swallows, but you should have dinner with my family. You might change your mind. When she looks up at him, his lips are parted, and for the first time since she was ill, she can see his fangs. He doesn't have to explain to her that it has something to do with death at this time. He's not the perfect vision of a prince in a fairy tale, but then she is not a princess either, is she? So what does that matter? And that's the end of this part, guys. What an interesting offer is that? Let's find out what happens next time and see if they do get the happy ever after. Many blessings.